Last week, Peaches sent me these messages. So this is the story of how I, Spentaneous, broke into your base, OP Peaches, and destroyed everything! Also, for those that don't know, Peaches and myself have been competing against each other in a space race for a few months now. So to rub some insult into that injury, this is also the video of how I have surpassed you within the space race. That's right, you probably thought I would waste hours and hours trying to break into your little base just so that you'd have even more time to rocket farther ahead of me. Oh, but I have some bad news for you, Mr. Peaches. What would take you 3 days to harvest and produce, I can complete in less than 2 hours using this beautiful contraption.
And I'm talking about the vertical digger. In a matter of minutes, it scanned through the entire ground and mined every single piece of these resources. And so we just finish up here and then we move them on to the next spot. But you might be thinking collecting resources is one thing, but processing them is a complete other story. And you're right. We built an electric compressor for every single type of resource and it wasn't quite fast enough. So we took it to the next step and put a detector on the top of every single one of these, and it says if there's 100 or less of the heavy duty plates, I want you to make another one. So these constantly and continuously process every single resource. Mercury ingots, compressed carbon, heavy duty plates, you name it. Anytime we go to start a crafting process, we have a huge massive buffer, and then when I go to sleep at the end of the night, everything catches up to the process it was at before. In fact, in the time that we've been talking here, I've already completed everything that I need for my tier 7 rocket.
But don't worry, Peaches, by the time you've learned about the vertical digger and my auto production process, I'll have already far surpassed this beyond your wildest expectations or even imagination. Don't believe me? Look at my new haircut, Peaches. So much time has passed since I recorded the video. Think of all the things I've done since then, Mr. Peaches. But before I rub in my space travel too much to you, let's go back to what we're actually here for. And that's me breaking into your base. But I mean, surely there's no way I could make it in there, right? With your super amazing high-tech security system.
Now we've just got to break into his base. It says he put camo blocks along the whole thing now.
The whole base,
All the way around is completely protected. So this starts the first strategy. The type of core that I've chosen is every block that it removes, it should replace with dirt. 1, we're gonna find out if this will remove his shield. And number 2, we're gonna find out if it can go through the shield and if it can remove part of his house and turn that into dirt. So it's not removing the shield, but it is going through and turning a bunch of his stuff to dirt.
which means that if we ever found his force field block but could not reach it physically, we could just target it with the quarry and blast right through it. The next idea was to build a new type of mining block and see if it could break or remove his force field. And although it didn't break the force field blocks itself, it did reveal the biggest breach in his own security, as well as became possibly the only way we could have broken into the lower levels of his base.
It's ignoring the shield and then it's just mining the ground.
We just hadn't realized its potential yet. So remember this, because we will return to it later. But before we came up with that strategy, I found an opening in his roof from a long time before when I was pelting his base with TNT explosives because I was bored and he was working on things that I wanted to harass him. Luckily for us, he missed repairing all of it and left an opening right there for us.
Okay, so we don't take damage in his roof. Okay, Mr. Peaches, this is bad news for you.
We also may have come across something that Peaches was absolutely devastated to find out he was missing.
Wait, there's a 64K storage disk fully full.
Because it turns out, I guess storage disks don't despawn when left out in the world. And because we came across it, he left us some juicy resources. Oh man, losing all of these resources? Wouldn't that suck? Could you imagine it? I couldn't. I don't know what I would do if I ever lost all of these. That would be the worst feeling in the entire world. So we pulled back into his base, and this is where things started to get really good, because I noticed that, all of these cables were connected to something.
Oh wait, these are all of his turrets.
Oh, Mr. Peaches, it'd be a shame if something happened to all these, wouldn't it?
Oh my god. Oh, please don't have any turrets on the ground. Oh, Peach is gonna be so mad.
It took a bit of time, but eventually all the turrets were able to be wiped out from the roof. But you remember how I just mentioned something about all those turrets still being on the ground?
Do we have all of his turrets down? Nope. No, we do not.
Shoot. Yeah, that might have set us back a fair bit. But I did have another plan. This one involving projectile protection, obsidian armor, and Sigma's beautiful enchanter that he just left sitting out for anyone to access that I was able to go through and, well, use it to make the greatest armor I'd ever seen in this mod pack. Thank you, Sigma. I don't actually think I've thanked him for anything in a very long time. There's no way we'd be able to do anything really past the point that we're at right now if we didn't have that armor, so thank you again. Seriously, thank you. My first strategy of returning to the upper tops of his base was to find the turrets he had poking through the ground and use the psi gun I created with the explosive power and shoot his turrets, exploding them right at their base. But I found out that the turrets themselves were immune to explosive damage. But hey, during this process, we also found out that the new armor we have takes virtually no damage from the turrets. However, the durability on the side, well, you can see that still goes down pretty quickly. I thought maybe the solution to dealing with his turrets was going to be to go dig out part of the wall of his base and then hug the outside where the turrets couldn't hit us. But that's when it all led to a whole brand new way of thinking. Because if we could throw an ender pearl in through the hole up above, who's to say we couldn't mine out part of his ground and throw an ender pearl into a place where he couldn't have put barrier blocks because the ground was taking up the space for him to put barrier blocks down there.
And we're in. We are in. Now, the biggest concern is going to be if there's any turrets down here in the lower level. And I'm hoping there won't be. Oh, why did I jump? Why did I jump?
Breaking in, of course, we found more turrets located in his underground section. But it wasn't so bad because we also found out that we could place blocks, which meant that the room itself was not filled with barrier blocks. So this was going to be a whole new piece of cake for us. We spent our time mining around the outsides right through the walls, getting close enough to the turrets that we could actually break them. But doing all this in the dark was not going to be an easy task. So I thought, why not pop a potion of night vision? This will make things easier to see and allow us to dig through the walls, find the turrets and break them, therefore solving hopefully all of our problems. And yeah, there were a lot of turrets around there. It honestly took a lot longer than I'd like to admit for going around removing all of them. But it wasn't long before we found the creme de la crop, the shield projector block. At first I thought about maybe messing around with it, maybe changing the settings on it so that I was safe and it hurt Peaches instead. But there were more than one projector block, so that seemed like a lot of work. I didn't really want to mess around with it too much, so well, there was another solution that made things a lot easier for us. Genuinely, this next thing you're going to see is just blind, stupid luck. I needed blocks to be able to pillar up to the floor above, but when I dug them up, look, right there, there's a little hole in the ground. And what do you know? This led deep, deep, deep underground, so we dropped some sand knowing that if it disappeared, that would mean there were force field blocks in the way.
Nope, the sand stays. Okay, we're safe just to go down.
Except there definitely was some down there. It was just one block farther below.
Oh my god, it does. Okay.
Peaches. But with what we already did to Peach's base,
you are gonna have an interesting sight when you log on next.
I think a few deaths as we figured out how to break into his base was well worth it. But back down to the underground barrier we went, where we found a lot more force field than we were hoping for. Seriously, this thing just kept going. So much, in fact, we needed to mine all the way over to the other side just to be able to see the size of what we were dealing with. Dude, he's got a whole underground layer.
Okay. So this is where he's moved all of his stuff to.
And that's when we found it. Encasing the outside of the force field was an obsidian wall. And once we got through, my god, did we see exactly the scope of what we were dealing with. He had to have been working on this for a very, very long time. Who knew how long this had all even been down here for?
Oh no, the camo shield's right there. It goes all the way around. He didn't do the whole floor too, did he?
There was really only one way to find out. And bedrock's unpredictable. It generates all over the place. The likelihood of Peaches building something at this scale, but filling in every single gap and opening, I was pretty sure we'd find a way into his base through the bedrock eventually. And after about an hour and a half of searching, we found a way in.
I ended up circling all the way around, and I found a spot I was able to get in underneath. I don't know what it's going to be like underneath, so what we're going to do is we're going to place TNT, blow that up, which should hopefully clear things up enough.
I was hoping the TNT would break enough of the stone around that we would have enough space that by ender pearling in, we wouldn't suffocate, we wouldn't die, we would survive. But don't get me wrong, I got close. We got stuck, we were spamming buttons,
crap.
We were gonna lose a ton of stuff that we didn't want to, but we did manage to finally safely pop in.
Oh my god, we're in. There's the shield, there's up above. We're in his base. We broke into his other base. But now we gotta figure out, where does he keep all of his stuff?
The first plan was to mine tunnels underneath his base to see if we could sneak our way through, but the bedrock made that impossible. There was no way we'd be able to do this without breaching the surface. Plan 2 was to use the physics of sand and gravel to block off the side of the turret so that we'd at least be able to get up and, take a little bit of a peek around. But we also at that point forgot that, well, we still kinda can't really get too close to the force field block. It'll still kill us.
I forgot about getting too close.
Step 3 of the plan, if we couldn't dig a tunnel, we'd make our own. And it actually worked way better, honestly, than I expected it would.
I'm trying to look at the map and figure out where he kept everything. Because we're currently here. I mean, this looks like something.
Except it wasn't really anything. So the only thing we could do was continue to explore and take out as many of the turrets as we could along the way. Peaches made this far from easy. However, by chance, the way we were mining around the exterior, we came across exactly what we were looking for this whole time. Just one quick little second was all it took to break that little shield projector block. And from there, the whole projector was completely gone. There was now nothing holding us back. Although we were quickly reminded that we were far from done. But with the shield down, now we could just mine to the outside and make easy work of all the turrets around the outside. Which at this point, Godrill came by to say hello, and then he gave us a hand destroying a bunch of the turrets. Hey, thanks, Godrill. After clearing all the turrets, the only thing we found were a bunch of farms and ender chests that were exporting the resources from the farms somewhere else. Where did all of his stuff go? But then I thought we'd finally stumbled upon it. Another hidden place, just behind another force field. But digging into it, this was when everything came to realization. There was nothing down here. Sure, there were some remains of cables and some old power production, but everything else was gone. The messages Peaches sent challenging me to break into his base, I think it was just for show. He'd already moved on. But sure, we never found Peach's secret underground collection of machinery. But hey, we trashed his farms in the process, found his little secret fuel tunnels, removed his refinery, and don't tell him, but we replaced it backwards. And then we also took out his fermenting barrel and put in an ordinary barrel instead that doesn't do anything. And well, you know, Peaches, I might have drained all of your fuel dry and used it for my own rocket ships. Thank you. And lastly, we found some secret cables running through the ground, which we followed along the way to find that he discovered where I was stealing power from him a bunch of episodes ago. He even placed a limiter on it so that I'd still get some power, but I'd have no idea that he had limited it. So of course I dug a second tunnel to connect a second cable and hid it carefully underneath a box of his so that I could go back to fully stealing all of his power once again. And then just to be sure, we followed his cable a little further, and we ended up coming up into his windmill generation facility, which is where we met a friend who ended up doing some of the griefing work for us. And we also found a secret tunnel that led all the way around to a fancy little dimensional transceiver, which I'm pretty sure was powering his new base that he'd moved all of his machinery to. So I sneezed and accidentally broke it. I mean, to an ordinary onlooker, it probably didn't look like a sneeze, but trust me, it definitely was. It was 100% a totally legitimate sneeze. And then after a hard day of work, we came back over to Peach's place and used his experience shower to wind down. Although I probably used a little bit more hot water than I should have. But there you have it, Peaches, the story of how I broke into your base and then your not so secret lair, as well as how I've surpassed you easily within the space race and how there's no way you could possibly ever dream of even catching back up to me. Oh, and also one last thing.
What a strange person.